Sustainability Defined would like to thank Procter & Gamble for sponsoring this episode. To learn more about P&G's sustainability program Ambition 2030, go to us.pg.com/environmental-sustainability.
All right, Definers, welcome to episode 73 of Sustainability Defined, where Jay and I are still here defining sustainability one concept and one bad joke at a time. Today, we're talking water conservation, Jay. We've been on a little bit of a water kick.
We have, and I think this episode is going to hit home, no pun intended, for a lot of definers out there.
All right, Jay, let's get into it. What are we going to talk about in this intro?
All right, so first we'll start with why is water important? Then we'll ask, what do we mean when we say water conservation? Then we'll ask, where is water used most often? How can water be conserved within its major use categories? How can water be conserved in our day-to-day lives? Then we'll ask, what does it mean to become a water positive company? And then finally, Scott, we will branch into our guest interview with Ashley Phil, Director of Sustainability for North America Home Care at Procter & Gamble.
All right, Jay, so I think basic premise, water critical to all life on Earth. Us, all the other organisms, H2O, simple chemical formula, but it's fundamental to so many environmental, chemical, and biological processes. It helps sustain all living life, really. And water is Earth's most abundant natural resource, and that's why it covers more of the planet than land. In fact, about 71% of the Earth's surface is water, and over 95% of the world's water is stored in the oceans. So water, there's a lot of it out there. It's a renewable resource, but fresh water, which is, what we really need to live, is only a small percent of global water supply. It's really only 2.5%. And a lot of this fresh water, it's stored where we can't get it, in glaciers and ice caps, deep in the ground. That means that of that 2.5% of global water supply that is fresh water, only a small percentage of that is surface water that we can access and use as humans. And that is less than 1% of global water. I remember learning this in junior high or something, Jay, and I remember just blowing my mind. Just all the water, and only that little bit we can access and use.
Percent of the global supply. Crazy. What's more, Scott, water loss has a massive negative impact on biodiversity and nature. Unfortunately, per the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF, about half of the world's wetlands have been destroyed since 1900. Some of the most productive habitats on the planet. Wetlands support high concentrations of animals, including mammals, birds, fish, and invertebrates, and serve as nurseries for many of these species. Wetlands also support the cultivation of rice, a staple in the diet of half the world's population. Check out episode 72 on biodiversity for more on this topic. Now, while we'll learn more about the ways that humans use water later in this episode, it's important to note upfront that since water is such an important resource, sound management and protection of freshwater sources is essential. To drive this point home, water is consistently in demand, but often not readily available. 2020 data from UNICEF and the World Health Organization found that 1 out of every 4 people globally does not have access to safe drinking water, and that 2.3 billion people lack access to basic hygiene services, meaning nearly a third of the global population doesn't have access to safe, non-contaminated drinking water when needed, or facilities with soap and water in the home.
So, Jay, I feel like it's really almost in a privileged position, right, to have ready access to water and be thinking about, well, how do I use less and conserve it when there's that more basic, I don't even have access to water, let alone thinking about how do I conserve what's available to me.
Totally.
Okay, so as populations and demands for natural resources grow, water could become even more scarce. This growth in demand, coupled with the worsening impacts of climate change, like droughts and changes in weather patterns, puts access to fresh water in danger for many people across the globe, even those of us who can easily access water today. The World Meteorological Organization has done extensive research into the potential impacts of climate change and found that it increases the risk of water-related hazards, meaning events like floods and droughts, along with the risk of water scarcity, will increase as the negative impacts of climate change increase. The UN estimates that more than 5 billion people will face these types of basic water shortages by 2050 due to climate-related impacts on our global water resources. Just a crisis. Unfortunately, that sounds like it's waiting to happen. And of course, it's already a crisis, right, Jay? You're just talking about people that don't have access today, but that unfortunately looks like it might grow. So, all right, Jay, let's get to this water conservation thing. What do we mean when we talk about that?
So, Scott, since clean fresh water is a scarce natural resource and there is potential for access to become even more limited, we need to think about the ways that we manage, use, and conserve water. So let's zone in here on water conservation. As a general definition, water conservation is the sum of activities that are designed to reduce the demand for water, improve water efficiency, and reduce water waste. Like other environmental conservation efforts, the basis of these actions is rooted in the belief that all natural resources should be protected and managed responsibly. In other words, water conservation is how we can more effectively preserve, control, and manage Earth's limited water resources. So, Scott, where is water used most often, and how can water be conserved within these uses?
Water can be used for a lot of different purposes. There's direct uses like cooking and drinking. There's also indirect uses within processes that make the goods and services we need. We recognize that how water is used varies globally between regions and countries, but definers for simplicity and given data availability, we're going to focus predominantly on how water is used in the United States. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, freshwater and saltwater withdrawals in the U.S. in 2015 were approximately 322 billion gallons, or for those of us outside the United States, 1.22 trillion liters each day. One source equated this to being enough water to fill the Empire State Building 1,163 times each day with water, which is a pretty astonishing statistic. So before diving into how we can conserve water, let's just talk briefly about how such large volumes of water are being used.
The U.S. Geological Survey categorized use across 8 different areas. So let's break this down a little bit. Here is where water is used most in the United States. The top water user in the U.S. is thermoelectric power, accounting for 41.4% of all water withdrawals in the U.S.
And Jay, I imagine that's probably surprising for people, huh? That
yeah, totally.
People probably thought, oh, irrigation, or I guess, the water, all of these millions of people are using, but no, it's just for energy.
Totally. So we're talking thermoelectric power. This water is used within the generation of electricity, mostly through steam-driven turbines. Water is used at various stages of electricity production, including cooling of the energy-generating equipment, which heats as energy is released. Water is also used heavily in the extraction, production, processing, and refining of energy sources like coal, oil, and natural gas. And Scott, topically, I just saw an article come out about the state of Colorado trying to regulate water use from fracking out here, which I think is a pretty water-intensive way to access additional oil resources out here.
Right, and then the water's stuck down there. So exactly. I'm sure they're looking at all of the above in Colorado right now when it comes to how water's being used. And one thing I'm sure they're looking at is our next category, irrigation. And this category includes water used in agricultural practices, like the direct watering of crops, as well as in field preparations, harvesting, and other planting practices. So agriculture, one of the most water-intensive industries. We covered it extensively just recently, episode 71, Water and Agriculture. And in that episode, we mentioned that irrigated agriculture is the largest user of water on a global scale. So while only the second biggest category in the United States, across the globe, agriculture on average accounts for 70% of all freshwater withdrawals. Definitely listen back to episode 71 for more information on water use in agriculture. That's where you're going to hear us mainly focus on the thermoelectric stuff and how individual people use it.
The third largest water user in the U.S. is the public supply. And this is where us definers can individually play a role. The public supply category accounts for 12% of the water withdrawn in the U.S. This covers things like domestic water use, as well as water used in pools, firefighting, water treatment facilities, and municipal buildings. We're talking pools. You can't forget the water used in your squirt gun. Data from the CDC reports that the average American uses 156 gallons per day. North Americans specifically use more water than any other country across the globe. Compare U.S. water usage to that of France at 77 gallons per day and India at just 38 gallons per day. And if you're interested in diving into more, I guess that works here.
Oh, yeah.
On how this water is delivered to our homes, pools, and elsewhere, of course, check out episode 21 on water infrastructure.
Jay, you know what I don't want in my future house is a pool. Not only the water use, just like it's so expensive to keep up with.
Right. I mean, you're paying to heat it, you're paying to maintain it, and yeah, it can be nice, but hey, I'm a community pool kind of guy myself.
Community pool, and just make friends with someone who's got a pool.
That's right.
And a boat.
And I will say, Scott, we don't have a pool here, and one summer for July 4th, I think during the pandemic, Ann and I went and got like little kiddie pools to fill up with water to pretend we had a pool, which, still uses some water, but dramatically less, I believe, from a typical pool.
Was this your idea or was this Anna's idea?
Oh boy, Scott, this has been a couple years. I probably won't lay claim to it, so I will dish the credit where it's due.
Well, I hope there's photographic evidence of this somewhere. All right. Fourth is industrial use. So we did thermoelectric, we did irrigation, we did domestic, just personal use, and now industrial. So this category accounts for 4.6% of U.S. water withdrawals. This water is used in the production and manufacture of goods and services that we need. Water use varies by industry, but some of the top water users in the industry category are food, paper, chemicals, refined petroleum, and metals. Rounding out the list, the last 5% of water use in the United States comes from a combination of agriculture, 2.3%, so that's water associated with the raising of water organisms. More on sustainable agriculture in episode 45. Jay, I'm kind of surprised agriculture registered here. I think it shows the growth of that, I guess.
Totally.
Mining, 1.2%, and that's water used in mineral extraction, of course. The domestic water supply, 1%, and that's referring mainly to people who have wells or private sources used in residences. And then livestock uses, 0.6%, and that's water associated with livestock and other farm operations. Okay, as a bonus, little trivia stat here, the top 5 states that withdraw the most water are California, Texas, makes sense, Florida, makes sense, but then Idaho and Arkansas, what are you guys doing?
It makes me wonder, Scott, if these states have like ginormous water park facilities,
Well, then I'd want to visit, I guess. But
right.
I wonder, do you think it's probably not the energy. It must be the agriculture driving it.
Yeah, I think you would think so, but
yeah.
Alas, topic for another episode.
Okay, so Jay, how can water be conserved within the categories we talked about?
So we just covered a lot about where and how we use water, but let's now focus on water conservation. Specifically, how can we reduce the demand for water in these industries and reduce water waste? As we covered water and agriculture extensively a few episodes back, and we'll get into personal water use towards the end of this episode, let's take the other categories we mentioned, industry and energy, and look at how water can be conserved in these areas. Let's start with the biggest water user, energy. So, while a little dated, a November 2011 report titled Freshwater Use by U.S. Power Plants, Electricity's Thirst for a Precious Resource, from the Union of Concerned Scientists was the first report that detailed power plant water use and related water stress.
Jay, by the way, Union of Concerned Scientists, anytime someone mentions that, I just picture people in white lab coats with like a very stern look on their face.
Yes, just
just very concerned.
Deeply furrowed brows there. So the group expanded on that 2011 report with its 2013 report called Water Smart Power, which is a deeper look into recommendations for the industry to make what they call water smart choices. So simply prioritizing more renewable and more efficient energy can reduce the demand for water. 2019 research from Duke University suggests that by replacing coal facilities with gas or renewable energy can save billions of gallons of water within the industry. An interesting statistic from this research is that for each megawatt of electricity produced using natural gas instead of coal, the amount of water withdrawn from local sources is reduced by 10,500 gallons.
Yeah, that's interesting, Jake, because I feel like we talk so much about moving away from coal for carbon reasons, but not so much the water reasons. And this intersection of energy and water, we could probably do a whole episode on it, even though I know we're spending some time on it. It's definitely something that a lot of people are focusing on.
Absolutely.
So technology also plays a role in water conservation within the energy sector. Some technologies used to create energy certainly more water intensive than others. As we mentioned, most of the water used in power plants is for cooling. Therefore, upgrading the cooling systems of these facilities with those that ease water stress could prove to be a big benefit. Simple water recirculation technology withdraws less water, and hybrid wet-dry cooling systems could be deployed more widely to minimize water use. Mindfulness from the energy industry about which power plants to retrofit or retire and what power plants to build are also critical here. Policy action and innovation that enable energy providers to opt for approaches that use less water while also providing the same energy services we need will be an important tool to address negative water impacts in energy.
Now let's turn to industry, and no, we're not talking about the HBO series. We want to lead here by saying that industrial water use is used in so many different ways, and water use can vary depending on the type of industry, the process, and the final product. There likely isn't a one-size-fits-all solution to water conservation. However, there is a lot of work being done to better understand how and where water is used in the process to make better choices about where conservation is possible. Before jumping into conservation, many companies need to understand where their water is coming from as a baseline measurement. After all, it's hard to manage something when you don't know your current impacts. The first step in creating a water management plan per the US EPA is meter, measure, manage. This encourages industry to meter and measure the water used at their facilities to find water-saving opportunities. They also encourage industry to take a deep look at their equipment to make sure there are no extensive water leaks or equipment malfunctions.
Equipment checks. I know we'll be talking about that later on in our homes too. So the U.S. Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy has identified best management practices for water efficiency. While this list was originally compiled as a reference for federal agencies, these suggestions can be used in all industries and include suggestions like information and education programs about water use, water management planning, water efficient landscaping, and cooling tower management. Additionally, water conservation measures like rainwater harvesting and the reuse of water within the building, called gray water, are two ways that water can be saved in buildings that house these industrial operations. Rainwater recovery systems capture rainwater and store it on site. This water can be used to flush toilets, be used in cooling towers, or be used in landscaping. Collection of rainwater can reduce the demand on the public water supply and also prevents rainwater from becoming runoff. Jay, I'm curious, in the homes and such that you're building in your day job, do they talk about rainwater harvesting and reuse of water within the building? Is that a thing?
That's a great question, Scott. So we were actually just looking at a building that we own in Austin, and I didn't know this, but their irrigation water actually comes from precipitation. So they've got these kind of stylistic silos / vats kind of across the property that I will say add to the aesthetic appeal of the property that actually store water that they use for irrigation.
Like the landscaping around the building, you mean?
Exactly. So I don't think it necessarily has to be treated to do that, but yeah, it's a big topic. And I guess another piece of that is when we look at our company's portfolio in Southern California and Northern California, the question becomes, how do we perhaps swap out landscaping to require less irrigation, all within this water use category. So yeah, it's very present.
Got it.
So additionally, industrial facilities can look at their building design and construction. The U.S. Green Building Council's LEED program can help construction and building users incorporate water conservation into building construction and design. The LEED system provides guidelines for reducing water, rainwater management, water metering, and incorporates the use of non-potable or potable. Scott, I never know on this show. Definers probably know.
Take an online poll. Yeah.
Non-potable water sources where they can be used.
That I don't think is correct, Jay. So.
Oh boy. Lastly, producers can optimize their products to not use as much water or need as much water during use. In fact, Procter & Gamble has made some impressive strides across their product portfolio in minimizing water use. Some examples from household names you'll recognize include Dawn Power Wash uses spray-activated suds that eliminate the need for pre-rinse or soaking, saving each home up to 81 gallons of water per week, and Swiffer WetJet that cleans dirt and grime while saving up to 70 gallons of water per year compared to a mop and bucket. Okay, Scott, let's ask, how can water be conserved in our day-to-day lives?
So, Jay, we've talked a lot about major water users like industry and energy, but I'm sure the definers are like, all right, enough of that. I can't do much about that.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm sure we've got some definers that are involved in such things. But in our day-to-day lives, what can we do? And there's a lot. And that starts with just being mindful about how we're using it. And similar to that industry baseline you were talking about, Jay, we can do an inventory of how we personally use water to inform our personal water strategy. So similar to making a carbon footprint for yourself, a water footprint is an assessment of how water is used based on your own individual and household activities. So in that water and agriculture episode, Jay, we've referenced a couple of times now, we mentioned in that episode watercalculator.org. It's a water footprinting tool. And this tool is super interesting because you can learn how your personal choices add up into water use. The tool is extra useful because it doesn't just look at your direct uses of water, but also estimates your water use via what you buy, the food you eat, and your energy use.
Once you know a little bit more about how you use water, there are some actionable steps that you can take to minimize your water waste by being more efficient. Don't know where to start to conserve your own household water? We'll get into a few suggestions here, but one great resource is the WaterSense program. This partnership program, sponsored by the US EPA, is a label for water-efficient products like appliances and faucets, but also an educational resource for individuals to learn about how they can conserve water. The WaterSense label is for products and services that are certified to use at least 20% less water and save energy while maintaining performance. In fact, WaterSense program research shows the typical American family can save 13,000 gallons of water and over $100 in water costs each year just by replacing old toilets with WaterSense models.
I feel like I've seen the Energy Star label out there more. I feel like WaterSense isn't as prevalent, perhaps, but I love that it not only is about saving water, but saving money. Same with Energy Star, too. But do you agree, Jay? Like, I feel like I don't see it all that often.
No, I would also agree, but I think it is cool, and perhaps to like differentiate the two, that WaterSense, as we mentioned, is positioning itself as an educational resource as well. So we'll see how it grows, but yes, I would agree with you.
All right, definers. Are you hungry, maybe thirsty for more ways to serve water? Well, let's talk about 5 additional ways you can save water in your daily life. One simple step that we likely learned as kids is to just turn off the water when you're not using it, like when you're brushing your teeth or washing dishes. The average bathroom faucet uses about 1.5 gallons of water per minute. So the average 2-minute toothbrushing session over a week, that could be 21 gallons of water. Over a year, we're talking over 1,000 gallons of water just going down the drain when you're not actively using it.
We can also limit the amount of time that we are in the shower. 17% of indoor residential water use comes from showering and bathing. While a long hot shower is nice, a 10-minute shower can use 25 gallons or more of water. Try timing yourself next time and seeing how long your showers are. Even just a few minutes shorter can save a lot of water. Standard shower heads use 2.5 gallons of water each minute. Having a low-flow shower head will reduce water use in a shower by using no more than 2 gallons a minute, and you're also, as a bonus, saving energy there too.
And I'm sure, Jay, there's some diviners being like, I love my hot shower, or I love my water pressure. And that's fair. I wonder, though, like, it's just being mindful of it, right? But I feel like having a shower head where you can, I don't really need the high pressure this time, right? Being able to easily change it would be good.
Right. Or, I think they're able to design these shower heads that can deliver high pressure, but with less water, being pushed through at the same time.
Like you don't even notice the difference.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, cool. So number 3, check for and repair leaks. In an average household, 10,000 gallons of water can be wasted each year due to leaks. That's equivalent to a nearly 7-hour shower purely in leaks. So maybe you got to find your leaks and then you can feel like, all right, I can have my hot shower. Common leaks can be found from leaky valves, dripping faucets, and toilet flappers that need replacing. These simple fixes can help conserve water that you don't even know you're using. Now, toilet flappers, Jay, this is like the thing in the top of the toilet that like holds back the water, releases the water as you're using it, right?
That's right. Although the more I think about this, the more I think back of like flappers from the 1920s, in the mix with toilets. So I don't want to confuse our definers here, but yes, Scott, we're talking about that contraption in the tank of the toilet that I think regulates water flow through it.
It sounds like an SNL skit you're writing over there. But it's also made me think about those toilets, Jay. Have you seen the ones where you have like two options, right? Like there's one if you don't need like a big flush.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. I feel like I've seen that more in like businesses rather than in someone's house. But I think that would be good to have. But I also think I feel like there should be like a third option that's like break glass in case of emergency or something. For, your serious needs.
That's great. All right. So the fourth bullet we have as far as managing your own water use comes down to running your washing machine only with full loads. This will maximize the efficiency of the water used in each cycle.
You save time too. Who's doing the laundry until you need to? Who are these people?
My gosh, Scott, I don't know about you, but me and Anna just kind of hate the whole laundry process, the doing it, the folding it. So the more we can condense that, I think the better off we'll be, and perhaps others will be too.
Well, don't get me wrong. I love the folding because it's like forced chill time. Watch my show, take my time, but I don't need that more often than it needs to happen.
It's actually really funny, Scott. I've tried to embrace that mentality as far as folding laundry to limited success, but I'm going to keep trying.
Or you're just stressed? You're like, I'm just trying to like get through this as fast as possible?
Well, yeah, because it's like I would just rather be doing something else. But you know what? Maybe I'll just start to like meditate and savor the folding of each shirt and the combination of the socks pairs, and it becomes more of a Zen type activity. I'll report back.
Oh my God. It's like when you put all your dishes in the cabinets. It's like when you've got all your clothes freshly folded in your drawers. What a feeling.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that Scott, your household must be impeccably organized and clean.
I think Shannon would disagree.
Okay, well, before we move off the washing machine topic, don't forget about our bonus episode on cold water laundry, which is a key way to save energy while doing your laundry. Okay, and lastly, you can save water outdoors by only watering plants when they really need it. Gardening experts also say that watering plants in the morning is better, not only for the plants to grow, but it's also the time of day where the sun isn't at its peak. In the afternoons, water is more likely to quickly evaporate rather than going into the plant's roots.
Makes sense.
Yeah, for more on this topic in particular, check out episode 60 on sustainable landscaping. All right, Scott, we've talked personal water use. Let's transition now and ask, what does it mean to become a, quote, water positive company?
Right. So let's move from the toothbrushing habits more to company-wide water strategies, although individuals and whole companies should remember to floss, to the idea of a water positive company. So different companies have different definitions of what this term means, but the main goal of a water positive pledge is to conserve natural water resources within the company's operations and to help increase access to water supplies to those that need them. Mostly being water positive means putting more water back into the places where you operate than what you use within your operations. Many large companies have made this pledge to be water positive. They include Microsoft, Starbucks, Levi's, and P&G. The companies have made some pretty bold commitments to conserve as much water as they can while returning water to the environment.
P&G recently announced a strategy to build a water positive future. Through this, they have a few overarching focus areas based on their, quote, "It's Our Home" movement. So first, let's start with Our Home, which really involves reducing water use within operations. By 2030, P&G has a goal to increase water efficiency by 35% per unit of production from a 2010 baseline, and seeks to recycle and reuse 5 billion liters of water in P&G facilities each year. To do this, the company is working specifically with sites located in water-stressed areas to understand their local watersheds, create plans for action, and address key water challenges. Additionally, they recently announced their goal to, by 2030, restore more water than is consumed at P&G manufacturing sites located in 18 water-stressed areas around the world.
I think that's also interesting, Jay. A lot of companies are doing this, looking at where are we operating that is water stressed, right? And you can't do everything everywhere, so let's really prioritize and focus. So I think we'll talk more about that in the interview. So the second part here is your home. 72% of people want to be more sustainable at home. Who's these other 28% that don't? What are you doing? But many consumers simply don't know how to make more sustainable choices. To combat this barrier, P&G is working to create and share products, tools, and information that will help consumers use less water at home. much of their new innovation is focused on making the more sustainable version of products the default option, like the Dawn and Cascade products we mentioned earlier.
Okay, so we've talked about our home, we've talked about your home. Let's talk about the home we share, which is the third piece of P&G's It's Our Home movement. This focus area involves restoring water for people and nature in water-stressed areas, responding to water challenges through innovation and partnerships, and providing clean drinking water to those in need. One example of collaboration in this space is Cascade, a P&G home care brand that is partnering with the Bonneville Environmental Foundation on Change the Course, an initiative to restore and protect more than 2.6 billion gallons of water to rivers and wetlands across the United States and deliver water stewardship education. We'll dive into P&G more with our guest, Ashley Phil, in just a little bit to learn more about how P&G is putting these ambitious goals into action.
So another company example is Microsoft, which announced in 2020 a commitment to be water positive within their direct operations by 2030. They hope to do this in two main ways. One is reducing their water use within their operations, and the second is replenishing water within the regions they operate that are experiencing water stress. There it is again, Jay. As part of the strategy to meet these ambitious goals, Microsoft has plans to do some investments in projects like wetland restoration, external to the organization, while also investing inside their operations to become more efficient with water use. Their newest campus in Silicon Valley, for example, has on-site rainwater collection and water treatment built in. This means that the campus is able to recycle its own rainwater and wastewater, potentially saving 4.3 million gallons of water a year. All right, Jay, you mentioned Ashley Phil. Let's talk more about her.
Scott, becoming a water-positive company is no easy feat. So let's switch gears and hear from Ashley Phil, Director of Sustainability for North America Home Care at P&G, to learn more about how P&G is working on its water-positive goals around manufacturing, their product offerings, and work on protecting and restoring water in nature. Ashley graduated from Queen's University in Mechanical Engineering in 2016 and found her passion in business development and sustainability at P&G Canada. Within her current role, she manages a multi-million-dollar portfolio of top brands including Swiffer and Mr. Clean. Ashley is one of P&G's few dedicated sustainability leaders and is also pursuing a master's in sustainability leadership at University of Cambridge overseas in England.
You know, Jay, I would love to learn the origin story of Mr. Clean.
Oh, Scott, that's fantastic.
Like, how did a guy that looks like that be like, that's who we want as the face of cleaning products? But it's worked so well. It's interesting.
He really is iconic. It's hilarious.
Yeah. All right. So in 2019, Ashley was awarded the WWF Workplace Champion Award, which recognizes one Canadian annually for exceptional initiative and perseverance to raise sustainability awareness and reduce their organization's footprint. That's amazing. Just one. She got it. Mm-hmm. She was also named to the Green Biz 30 Under 30 in 2022. So, all right, Jay, listeners, let's hear from Ashley.
Here we go. All right, Definers, welcome to our interview portion of today's episode on water conservation. We are super excited to have Ashley Phil, Director of Sustainability for North America Home Care at Procter & Gamble, visiting us from our northern border over in Toronto. So, Ashley, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I am beyond excited to be joining this podcast. Been a long time listener personally.
Oh, well, thank you, Ashley. We appreciate you checking it out.
All right, so Ashley, let's get started from your background. We saw you earned your bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. What drew you to mechanical engineering in the first place?
I was fortunate growing up to have some really amazing women in my life, and they introduced me to this world of science and technology from a really young age. I grew up just with a lot of curiosity about how things worked, and my parents studied chemistry. My sisters both studied chemical engineering. All at the same school, I might add. They all went to Queen's University out here in Canada. And at the time when I was in high school, I was lucky enough to visit my sisters while they were in school. And I had no idea what class I sat in on. It was something called transport phenomenon. And still no clue what they were talking about.
I like how that's what you chose to sit in on. Transfer phenomena. Yes, I'm going to go to that.
But what I came to kind of understand through that class and through my sisters was that engineering is all about solving problems, and often in new, creative, innovative ways using math and science as your tools. So I thought, I love solving problems. I love figuring out how things work. And I went into engineering. And I was really lucky that in my first year of engineering, I got introduced to this amazing world of this community of Engineers Without Borders. And that was a nonprofit organization really using the engineering toolkit of problem solving, intersecting with societal and planetary challenges. So we started in mechanical engineering. And it was a very interesting ride.
Love it. And Ashley, continuing on that journey then, would you say that you'd always had an interest in sustainability, or was that something that you naturally gravitated to over time?
So EWB, Engineers Without Borders, was definitely the start because that's where I learned about some of the major challenges facing our society. But over time, it really became more about the planetary boundaries. And for me, it came through a lot in understanding how the products we use, the food we buy, the choices we make really impact our habitats and our natural environment. And so while I loved engineering, I really wanted to go more on that route of product. And so I joined P&G, and my first role was actually not in engineering, but started in sales. And through that role, I joined our sustainability network here in P&G. And that started out at the time as driving green challenges, employee events, lunch and learn, stuff like that. And in my second year, I took over as the lead of the sustainability network. And it was through that work that we eventually got recognized by World Wildlife Foundation for our contributions to being a living planet at work. And by then I was just absolutely hooked on sustainability. And I really saw this opportunity to be a force for good within my role. And I had amazing managers that empowered me to bring that to work. So fast forward a couple years, it's really exciting to see how CSR and ESG have transformed in my company. And that sustainability network is now also working to enable our brands to be a force for good in our organization. But I will say, being a mechanical engineer and working in business and passionate about sustainability, I just felt like my self-learning wasn't enough anymore. And so I decided to also go get more education in this space. And now I'm halfway through my master's in sustainability at Cambridge. And it has been an amazing tool to grow that toolkit of problem solving with new and different insights within the ESG realm.
I think it's cool that you started in sales. I have to imagine that there was a fair bit of learning in that sort of role that you can't get in the classroom and that has probably served you well, is because I feel like a lot of sustainability can be sales, getting people to buy into what you're selling, why this is important, why they need to change the way they've always acted. And you've certainly been successful. I mean, Jay, I think we're a little starstruck here. We're talking to a Green Biz 30 under 30 here.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
Kind of big deal.
Thank you.
No, kind of about it. Congratulations, Ashley.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it.
All right. So, Ashley, let's talk a bit more about what you're doing at P&G. So, Director of Sustainability, you're in home care. Tell us more about what that entails. What's your day-to-day? What are you charged with delivering on? Things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially a great question, since as the world of sustainability professionals is expanding, the work somebody does in sustainability can vary so differently across companies. So firstly, I'll start with home care. What does that mean? That's all about the products that P&G sells that focuses on cleaning your home. That includes brands like Dawn, Cascade, Swiffer, Mr. Clean, Febreze, to name a few. And then when it comes to director of sustainability, I think one thing that I always like to say is I operate a little bit function agnostically. So I'm not necessarily working within sales or brand or R&D, but I'm really bringing the sustainability perspective to each of these areas. So I work with each of those departments to drive progress against our Ambition 2030 goals, which is P&G's overarching sustainability target. I think uniquely about my role, I really work within the brand operations versus on our corporate team. So I really focus in on how our brands can innovate from both a product and commercial perspective to reduce water, energy, and waste across its life cycle. Sometimes that looks like partnering with R&D to reduce packaging waste and integrate more recycled plastics into our brands. Other times that looks like working with our brand teams to create educational campaigns. So it really expands across multiple functions. Additionally, something that I get really excited about is I work and partner with different sustainability teams at retailers. since P&G doesn't sell directly to consumers, retailers are a really important place for us to collaborate. And that's where a lot of that sales background really does come in handy, because it's an opportunity for us to work externally to bring about, the goals that we both want to accomplish as big companies.
So it sounds like it's very relationship driven. And correct me if I'm wrong, like each brand kind of has its own team. So you have to be friends and get to know the people on each team and the people that have different functions on those team, because you're function agnostic, and the people at these retailers. So is some of your time just setting up calls and going to them and having that in-person engagement? Is that part of the role?
Yes, absolutely. Collaboration between retailers, between multifunctionals is absolutely a big part of the role. And then bringing that additional perspective of how do we reduce water, energy, and waste as we make decisions as different entities.
Okay, and then last kind of high level thing. So you were saying that, I think you said you came in at sales, then you were on the sustainability network within P&G, and then you became director of sustainability. So just rapid acceleration upward. One of the things that we know our definers like to hear about is career advice and how do I get into this field and how do I grow within it? So maybe as someone who broke in and grew so quickly, is there any career advice you want to pass on quickly before we dive into the water conservation stuff?
Thank you. I have had a really amazing career at P&G so far, and I feel like it was just yesterday that I was one of the definers listening in, trying to figure out how to break into this space. And I think as I look back, there's maybe 3 things that come to mind. So firstly is getting involved literally in any capacity. When I first started at P&G, I didn't necessarily have sustainability in my work plan, but I found a way to get involved at my company and really get involved in the office. So I invested additional time into sustainability projects, then found a way to integrate it into my work plan. Honestly, I think that any role can be a sustainability role. You just have to find a way to find the opportunity in your work plan.
Right. Like one of the things we talk about is that sustainability roles don't necessarily have sustainability in the title.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I think the people I work closest with don't have sustainability in their title, yet they are still working on a lot of sustainability initiatives within their work plan. Then secondly, I think working at P&G and having that sales background taught me how to use sustainability and find the and. So when I was pitching the initial green challenge I wanted to run at our organization, it was not just about driving employee habits to reduce waste and water, but it was also about improving employee retention or creating a better culture within our organization. So I think with sustainability, there's always an inherent and. Another example would be, let's find a way to reduce the amount of water we're shipping to reduce our transportation costs and reduce the amount of fuel we're using to reduce emissions. So I really think that there's a lot of opportunity to find the win-win within sustainability, and that can help advance the sustainability agenda more quickly.
We love those win-wins.
Jay, I agree. Win-wins, co-benefits, all the things. And just when you said finding the and, I love that. But it also reminds me of improv, where you try to find the yes and.
Yes, and we love that at P&G for sure.
The P and G, lest we forget.
Yes.
And then lastly, mentorship. So I've always had really amazing managers that understood my passion and have given me every opportunity to bring it to life. But I've also worked within the company to find who are the people who are really making an impact in the sustainability space, and how can I work with them to grow my understanding, learn more, and become an expert in some of these places where we need help. I would not be where I am today without meeting with some of the passionate leaders of sustainability within my organization. And I think that's a great tip for anybody breaking into this space, is just to go out there and find who's leading sustainability within their organization.
Fantastic. Well, Ashley, that is all great context for the conversation we're going to dive right into here today on water conservation at Procter & Gamble. As we highlighted in the intro, P&G owns many household brands that definers are more likely than not familiar with. I know some of my friends that went bald early on, their first go-to Halloween costume was Mr. Clean, right?
When life gives you lemons, Ajay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ashley, we'd love for you to tell us about how you approach each product from the lens of water conservation. We're thinking questions like, are certain products better positioned to minimize water use than others? And if so, what would those be?
So we are really focused on water conservation as a company. And one of the biggest sources for water use is household consumption. And the average North American family uses 300 gallons of water per day. And I think it's really hard to visualize how much water can be in some of these numbers. So I'll try my best to help visualize.
Yeah.
And 300 gallons is about 7 average bathtubs full. So if you can think about a consumer using that every day, 7 bathtubs. So with our products being in 100 million households in America, I believe we really do have an opportunity across all our brands to create more productive ways to do everyday tasks that help save water. So all of our brands have that part to play. And we think about it in 3 ways. Firstly, in our home, which speaks to our goal to reduce water in our operations. We have a specific goal to reduce water per capita production by 35% by 2030. Secondly, in your home really meaning consumers' homes, and how our products can help reduce the amount of water used to complete everyday tasks. And thirdly, the home we share, which speaks more to the natural environment and how we can restore and conserve water in natural habitat. And so if I were to give you one example of how a brand does that today, I'll take Dawn. So our Dawn Ultra is designed to be a concentrated formula, meaning there's 3 times more grease cleaning power per drop versus non-concentrated Dawn. So we have way less water in our manufacturing. Secondly, when it comes to consumers' home, that same formula enables consumers to get dishes cleaner faster. So with 50% less scrubbing. As a result, consumers spend less time standing at the sink with the tap on, which reduces a ton of water in the home. And then lastly, and I know we'll go more into it, but we've also partnered with different non-governmental organizations like International Bird Rescue to rescue over 150,000 marine birds and mammals to help the natural habitat aspect of water conservation. We are constantly innovating to figure out how to reduce water usage at home. And one of the other exciting things that I think P&G is doing to help with this is the 50-liter home coalition. So this is at a corporate level where we're developing partnerships to unlock new solutions to address water challenges. 50 liters is about 13 gallons. So if you think about 300 gallons being used by a consumer today, the lighthouse of getting to 13 gallons a day would be a huge opportunity. And we're doing that by helping people reduce hot water usage without the trade-offs to get to that efficient home that uses 10 times less water than people typically use today.
Is there like a website or something to help with people with that? Or
Absolutely. You can go to P&G Citizenship Report and you will find the 50-liter home under our water conservation effort.
This is all a perfect segue actually into our next question for you. From the sustainability strategy, from the brand perspective, and then moving over to how you communicate and engage with your end users and consumers on that. So, for example, we saw that you led a project with Walmart to communicate the amount of water conserved by using the dishwasher over hand washing, using things like signage and packaging, specifically saying that you're using 15 liters per cycle in the dishwasher versus 15 liters of every 2 minutes of hand washing, which I think for perhaps a lot of people is almost backwards, because I think you would maybe generally assume that hand washing might be more efficient.
Right. I was going to say that too.
So, that being a perfect case study of kind of an interesting and perhaps not perfectly intuitive nugget for folks generally out there, how do you generally engage consumers on this, and what strategies tend to work better than others?
You're absolutely right. People sometimes get it backwards. I think it's because the dishwasher is a little bit of a black box.
Yeah.
You throw your dishes in there and you have no idea what goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly.
But it's true. It's about 4 gallons for every load versus when you're using your sink, you're using about 4 gallons every 2 minutes. So when it comes to consumer education, this is definitely an area I get really excited about. Our research indicates that most consumers want to do more to help the planet, but often just don't know how. And that manifests in what we call a intention versus action gap. And so our brands, in partnership with retailers, are working to educate and empower consumers to make small changes at home that drive a reduction in the usage of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
Using Cascade as the example here, there are 3 ways this has come to life in our marketing campaign. So communicating the water-saving benefits of dishwashing over hand washing directly on the back of all our packages. So if you go to a store, pick up a Cascade and turn it around, you'll see this beautiful visual that shows a sink filling up versus a dishwasher load. Secondly, we tap into our advertising power to drive sustainability messages, but we also do it in a way that's fun and engaging. So our latest Cascade commercial is called Do It Every Night.
I have seen it. Oh, it's hilarious.
It's fun. And the message behind the Do It Every Night message is really about using the dishwasher versus hand washing saves you water and energy, and actually can also save you dollars on your energy bill when you make the switch. So I think that's a really fun way to engage consumers. And then thirdly, as you mentioned, through our retail partnership, because we're aiming to meet consumers where they are shopping, whether that be through in-store signage, if you're shopping in store, or if you're shopping online through some digital partnerships. As people are making decisions about how to clean their home, we want to remind them on the opportunity to do so with less resources. And so all three of those efforts come together to try to help close that intention versus action gap as we help consumers understand that there doesn't need to be a trade-off between saving water and cleaning performance.
Mm-hmm. It makes total sense. And do it every night. I, of course, knew you meant dishwashing. But I do want to ask you about your broader portfolio of products. And we've been talking a lot about dishwashing and consumer use, but is there an example you want to tell us about the actual manufacturing of the products you all make, where you identified ways to reduce water?
When it comes to reducing water in our operations, that is absolutely one of our top priorities. Across our operations, we have a goal of reducing water use in manufacturing per capita by 35%. And as of 2022, we're already at 27% increase in water efficiency. I think with 7 years left to go, we're well on track to hit that 35% goal.
What were you not doing before that you did that made that kind of progress?
There are many different strategies that we deploy. One of the big things is all about concentration. That's a big role that we can play as P&G to figure out how to reduce the actual water in our formulation to get to more concentrated products that, again, can deliver that superior cleaning performance, but without needing the water in the actual manufacturing. That also then benefits some of our transportation emissions as we have less water we're shipping around.
That makes sense.
Excellent. All right, so Ashley, let's transition now to P&G's impact generally. So we've talked about manufacturing, we've talked about how consumers use the product, but perhaps let's take a step back and think about just P&G's impact in environmental systems to help make these products in the first place. Could you tell us more about P&G's larger ecosystems approach and perhaps Dawn's work with protecting wildlife?
So maybe I'll back up for a second and say why P&G is really focusing on water conservation.
Sure.
By 2025, the United Nations projects that about 2/3 of people on the planet will live in water-stressed areas. And we know that water is obviously critical for people, nature, wildlife, and agriculture. And so one thing we've seen corporately is that there's been a lot of conversation about driving climate emission reductions and working towards net zero business models. But water isn't getting about the same spotlight as other areas yet.
Agreed.
And that's why we really focused on a water positive strategy that can sustain people now and then for generations to come as well. So Cascade and Change the Course is one example of a global portfolio we have of 18 different water restoration projects. And it's something that we're not tackling alone, but definitely with multiple expert partners. And that definitely is a great segue into the work we're also doing with Dawn. This Dawn partnership on wildlife has definitely existed long before I started in my role as Director of Sustainability. And it actually started back in 1978 when our partners, International Bird Rescue, discovered the power of Dawn for helping waterfowl who were impacted by oil spills. And then since then, we've really donated 50,000 bottles of Dawn to help clean over 150,000 aquatic birds and mammals to support wildlife. And we're definitely not stopping there. We have a huge goal of supporting International Bird Rescue and Marine Mammal Center to rescue and rehabilitate over 1 million marine mammals who are sick or affected by oil pollution. And then we're also creating an arm of that, which is advocacy, to help work in habitats to keep wildlife safe and in the wild.
Yeah, no, I love how you all broaden out your work, getting involved in the policy stuff. So maybe the Dawn doesn't need to be used in the first place. Makes sense. And I guess I want to ask you just your measurement. You mentioned that you all are well on your way to your water efficiency target within your manufacturing plants. To what extent are you measuring the water conservation impact you're having?
We are measuring our water conservation impact in each of the 3 areas that we're working on: our home, your home, the home we share. So another example in our home would be our commitment to source 5 billion liters of water from circular sources, of which we're already at 3.3 billion liters, and that's 820 million gallons or so.
So it sounds like you're taking it a step further. Not only how do we make sure the water doesn't end up in our product if it doesn't need to, but also how do we make sure that that water, after it's gone through our facility, ends up where it should be.
You got it.
Okay, Ashley, this has already been a fantastic conversation. We now want to turn our lens towards the future. The question to you is, what does the future of water conservation look like at P&G? And are there any additional products that you're channeling your energy into that definers should stay on the lookout for?
We're cooking up a lot of innovations that will deliver superior performance without trade-offs. And while I can't necessarily share the behind the scenes of the work that's going to be coming to market soon, I do want to talk about some of the latest launches that we've had, and they're available now. Starting on the hand washing side, we recently designed a whole new bottle for Dawn, and we call it Easy Squeeze. This product has basically a brand new cap, and you're like, what? How can a different cap really help you save water?
Yeah.
And so I want you to envision washing your dishes for a second. Envision yourself going to the sink, turning on the tap, grabbing your bottle, hopefully it's a Dawn, flipping the lid open, turning it over, putting soap on the sponge, and then turning the bottle back around and closing the cap. All of that time, the water has been running. This Easy Squeeze bottle is designed so that you can place it facing downwards with a no flip cap. So there's absolutely no cap on the bottle. So all you do is you grab your Easy Squeeze bottle, put some soap on the sponge, turn on the sink, wash your dishes, put the bottle back. And we actually aren't making this up. We tested it with consumers and saw 30% less water used because it was designed to reduce time at the sink using the habits that consumers are already using. And it might sound like a small change, but when you think of 30% less water at the sink across 100 million consumers, it really starts to add up.
Kind of reminds me of like when people are brushing their teeth. You wouldn't want to run the water while you're getting your toothpaste on the tube.
Exactly.
Also, the scale that you just mentioned, I mean, that's why when P&G makes a change, it means big impact because of the many millions of people you're engaging with.
Yes. And then the one that I am definitely the most excited about is the launch of Cascade Platinum Plus. And you're probably like, why is a purple tub of Cascade the most exciting thing that you have? But it's really the chemistry technology that sits inside that tablet is on a whole new level. We stress tested this new formula with the worst kitchen messes you can think of. So I want you to envision you made something, you've got some birchon teriyaki sauce that you were cooking up with tofu or something.
Sounds tasty.
Right. Someone had some fun at P&G getting messy. Yeah, good day at the office there, yeah.
Yeah, a messy dish. And with this new technology that sits in Cascade, we can get that clean without any pre-rinse or soaking before it goes in the dishwasher. And skipping the pre-wash could save consumers up to 150 billion gallons of water per year in America.
Whoa.
And that's 225,000 Olympic swimming pools.
Goodness.
I still couldn't grasp in my head what that would mean. So that's 7,000 miles of swimming pool, which would cover the distance between LA and New York City, not once, twice, but 3 times.
Wow.
Just by not pre-rinsing your dishes before they go in the dishwasher.
And that would be an annual savings, right?
Annual saving.
Yeah, I think people just need to get like comfortable with it. Like the avoidance of the pre-washing, almost like challenging them, like put the dirtiest thing you want in there and like send us your before and after,
Exactly. So what we're trying to communicate is this idea of scraping the big stuff off your plate, loading it directly into the dishwasher, and then you're done. So really trying to break that habit or that myth that you need to pre-rinse your dishes to get them clean. With the right detergent, the dishes will come clean.
It's easier too.
So you can stay tuned for more to come, but Platinum Plus and Easy Squeeze are available now, and they are really changing the game in terms of reducing water resources at home.
All right, so Ashley, let's pretend that we've just had a party at our house. We've gathered everyone around the dishwasher to just put their stuff directly in because we've told them we've got Cascade Platinum Plus and you don't have to We don't have to wash it, and everyone, this is going to be amazing. So we're all gathered around a dishwasher.
And all good parties, Scott, of course, revolve around the dishwasher.
Yes, of course. Even though, to be honest, don't have a dishwasher in my apartment right now, which I know, too much water use as a result. But let's pretend that I have a dishwasher and that we are gathered at this party around it. And I want to impress them with a water conservation fact. Ashley, is there something that you would recommend to me and our listeners in a similar situation that they should mention to get everyone to just drop their jaw?
Yes, I've been in this exact situation before, gathered around the dishwasher, having a party.
Have you, Ashley? Have you?
Naturally.
Naturally. And I think one of the mind-blowing stats, beyond the one I just shared about skipping the pre-rinse in America, is just how much more efficient a dishwasher can be. So zooming into an individual household, Cascade found that the average person spends about 15 seconds hand washing a dish. In that time, the sink uses half a gallon of water. So running your dishwasher with as few as 8 dishes is all it takes to save water. And then I like to go around and point at 8 people with holding some sort of dish and say, it is better for us to wash those in the dishwasher than to do them by hand. All it takes is 8.
I love that, Ashley. And I am curious, like to what degree does the performance of the dishwasher come into play? Like, if you have an older one, were you guys able to determine that it's still, with these Cascade Platinum Plus, still has that same bang for the buck, if you will?
Yes, and we're testing with multiple different dishwashers, but that claim specifically is in regards to a dishwasher that would be Energy Star certified. And that's
Gotcha.
Where we typically use most of our testing on our products.
Okay.
Excellent.
Ashley, this has been a pleasure. And now you have your own sustainably defined party fact that you've shared after it sounds like you've listened to other people share theirs. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners about water conservation, what P&G is doing to advance this important issue?
I think the one thing I will add, Scott, as you are not a dishwasher user, because you don't have one, doesn't mean you can't join the party of water conservation at home. And I'll just call out Dawn Power Wash is another one of our innovations that we brought to market a few years ago. And this one's really exciting because it actually allows you to reduce water usage at the sink by about 50%. And that's because you don't need to use water to activate the suds. And I always like to think about, if you made something really greasy, like say bacon, or in my case, some sort of like carrot bacon concoction, all you have to do is take your Dawn Power Wash and spray directly onto the pan, and you'll just watch all this sludge and grime slide right off. And then you don't need to activate the water until you're rinsing it off. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a dishwasher, there are still opportunities for you to conserve water at home when you're doing your dishes.
Look at that, Scott. She just crushed it.
Yeah, what was that called? Dawn
Power Wash.
Dawn Power Wash. I would look for that. And did you say carrot bacon concoction?
That was my question, too.
I did say carrot bacon. If you haven't tried it, you absolutely should.
Wait, like you wrap bacon around a carrot or?
No, you dehydrate carrots in some oil until they give you the texture of a really crispy bacon.
Oh, okay.
Are you a vegetarian then?
I am.
Okay, well, kudos to you for that. And maybe, Ashley, you can share this like recipe or how to do that. Maybe we can share that in the Instagram, put in the show notes.
Or just a future episode on sustainable recipes. Ashley, when are you available?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the carrot bacon turned out super well. So, I might go find a different expert. I think I'll stick to water conservation. Thank you.
Fair enough. Well, thanks for sharing your insights and explaining all this and giving us all practical tips, even myself. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll hope you'll keep listening and join us again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute highlight of my career so far.
Oh, wow. Ashley, thank you. So, Scott, folks might not know that, like thermoelectric power, this podcast also runs on water, right? I have a cup here that cools me down as I heat up reading these intro notes, and it's about out, so it's time to cool down this episode and turn off the tap here.
It's been a long-standing problem for you, Jay, just getting hot while we read those intro notes.
Yeah, Scott, it's a real issue.
All right, well, we'll spare the listeners that. We want to do some thank yous?
Let's please. Running down the list, let's thank Taylor Price, who is our fantastic new research and operations director. She really helped us spearhead this episode. So Taylor, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, thank you to Keaton Butler for the audio engineering behind this episode. And speaking of putting this episode together, we also want to thank Daniela Grava with the public relations firm MSL for all the back and forth and coordination that she helped do to make this episode a reality.
For sure, for sure. And listeners, our one request of you per usual is to please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, particularly on Apple Podcasts, because you can leave a review there. Unfortunately, Jay, we looked, there's no new reviews. So if someone would have left a review, we would have read it. We've got to go back in the archives. I think we found one we haven't done before, but please take a minute to review. We'll read it. We have fun. We have a lot of fun doing it. So here's an old one. It's from Higginsona 207826. Does this person live in Arizona? I don't know. January 17th, 2019. This review is titled, Just Finished Binging Every, in all caps, episode. I'm a college student wanting to go into the sustainability industry. However, I'm unsure of what sector. I downloaded every environmental podcast I could find, and this one is by far the best. The hosts are so relatable, they pick great topics and break down complex ideas with entertaining analogies. I now have a better idea of how to help make the world more sustainable on a professional and personal level. Thanks, Jay and Scott. Keep it up. Higginsona 287826. Oh my God. Thank you.
Higginsona, come over to Higgins, Colorado, and we'll share a beer. That's a fantastic review. Thank you.
You're so relatable, Jay.
Back at you, Scott.
All right, listeners, definers, I think that about does it. You all stay sustainable out there. I'm Scott Breen.
And I'm Jay Siegel. We will see you next time.